Welcome, I'm Todd Raffel with Eightfold. We're a talent intelligence platform where AI helps you through the whole employee life cycle, but we're not actually really getting into artificial intelligence today. We're actually talking about what's on the minds of HR leaders, and I have one here. Colleen McManus, she's an HR leader in the state of Arizona, coming out of Phoenix. And she's going to talk about, we're going to talk about the three things that are on her mind now, given the state of the economy and the workforce and everything else. First, and just to touch on this briefly, just to sort of set the stage, just to say that this is a complex workforce, just to sort of think about what she's dealing with there. A lot of the stuff you see online are just really focused on so-called knowledge workers. Tell them to work at home kind of thing. The state of Arizona has correctional facilities workers that brings up all kinds of issues like, do you have visitors, do you not? Healthcare workers, can't just necessarily send them home. And then knowledge type workers where maybe they can work from home. So all kinds of different, that's just the tip of the iceberg, all kinds of different types in the workforce. Is that right?
That's true, Todd. A lot of state agencies have got multiple functions and the scope can be huge. And as you pointed out, corrections, we also have people who investigate cases of child abuse, and we have, the transportation agencies, which, fix the roads, and public safety that responds to accidents and those kinds of situations. So it really runs the gamut.
Sounds like it. So three things you've said are on your mind right now, at least three. We're going to boil it down, more than three. Three things. So number one, we're going to talk about communications being a source of clear and correct communications. Talk to us about that.
So I think communications with employees, particularly at a time like this, communications are absolutely critical. Timely communications, thorough communications. I once worked with an individual who felt that we over-communicated a bit out of human resources, but my own personal belief is that you can't really over-communicate. At a time like this, if employers are not communicating or not communicating well, then employees are, sharing gossip and rumors and everything that's in the urban legend out there that they're hearing. You don't want to alarm employees. You want to be a reliable, trustworthy source. You want to, in that communication, refer them to reliable subject matter experts or reliable sources. Right now, for example, with the current pandemic, referring people to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The CDC has a wonderful website. States have got various websites. Our Department of Health Services here in Arizona has an excellent website with a lot of pandemic-related information. Mm-hmm. So being sure that we are relaying information in a very timely way, that we are accurate sources. We're not spreading any misinformation. We're not opining on anything. We are merely referring people to great sources of information. Where there are policy questions that arise out of that information, we are prepared to address that. And let me just give you a quick example. So yesterday, the Senate passed and the President signed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, I think is the full name of it. Anyway, it provides for Emergency Family Medical Leave Act leave and also emergency sick leave for most employers in the country. So that's got a lot of HR ramifications. My business is HR. So we have a lot of policy questions around that now to get that implemented in a timely way and also accurately as the law is intending.
Yeah, you even give the example when we talked on the phone of stock market. People hear about the stock market going down, even if you could be the source of information about people's finances, retirement plan, just something to show that you are on top of correct communication. Number two, you are looking at the workday and starting to think about what a workday might look like. Someone works from home, it doesn't mean they're a hermit, doesn't mean they don't talk to anyone, but does it mean they have to be sitting at a computer at every second? Or maybe some of the hours should be at night when their kids are sleeping, or maybe they sleep for an hour during the day if they need to, or and work in the early morning, whatever it might be. You're taking a look at, like, are we really going to stick people into a rigid workday from home? Is that necessary? That's what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think employers are having to think about their needs at this time and to follow the guidance, for social distancing, placing people at home to telework if we can. Many employees, obviously, with the state and with other employers in Arizona, can work from home. Not everyone can. For those who can, though, I think it's important to offer that kind of flexibility. Many are home right now because the schools are closed in Arizona, and we're not the only state, as I see what's going on around the country. And so if, we have employees that are having to care for younger children at particular times of the day, I think as flexible as we can be about the scheduling and about the requirements at this time, we need to be prepared to do that. Hangouts and some of those Zoom meeting technologies are new to some of us who haven't had to use those before. So as we are exploring those tools and the kind of functionality that brings to us, we're finding other more creative ways to do things. And certainly I would say that for critical positions, like my position right now, I wouldn't presume that it's a critical position necessarily, but we are getting a lot of questions and answers, and having to respond to things in a very timely way. So I am finding that I'm quite busy during core hours, but in the evening is when I have time to catch up, do a little bit of reading, do a little bit of research, check those websites that might be good sources, develop some communication pieces. And I think employers just have to be flexible if they can be, listen to what their employees' needs and capabilities are at this particular time, and then be prepared to respond to that. If I were home caring for an ill family member, for example, my needs might be quite different, depending upon what that family member's needs might be.
And interestingly, I mean, you joked about it, but this happens to be, it seems like, a crisis where HR is critical. There have been many crises and many economic ups and downs, and this seems to be one where HR is playing a more prominent role and seems to be in a more prominent and critical position.
Right.
And you mentioned Zoom, and speaking of that, my apologies for any choppiness in the Wi-Fi. I'm here near Los Angeles, where everyone and their kid is downloading the history of gorillas and camels and everything else, trying to keep themselves busy. So we are probably out of sync with our lips and our voices. And number 3, we have the communication, we have the workday you're starting to think about. The other thing you've been telling me you've been thinking about is talent availability. Sadly, apparently there could be layoffs, or best case scenario, maybe hiring freezes and fewer people getting jobs elsewhere, which means possibly maybe more people available to you. Right?
That's right. We could conceivably be looking at a much more expanded talent pool over the next couple of months. If I look just at the economy in Phoenix and in Arizona, with restaurants and small businesses having to close or having to dramatically change their procedures, there are a number of businesses that are having to lay people off right now. And watching the news, there are even larger businesses that are impacted. It seems like Amazon is sort of reaping the benefit, as they just announced they're going to be hiring 100,000 people. So I think we're seeing a change as the economy responds to the pandemic situation. And I think for employers, public sector employers that always have government jobs, because we serve the public, and those functions have to go on, those public safety functions and those investigative functions and those, paying of unemployment insurance and things like that, those have to go on in the public sector. So that does afford us an opportunity as an employer over the next few months to have a broader applicant pool and possibly tapping into applicant pools and maybe populations or groups that we haven't historically tapped, for talent. So I think it challenges us to be a little bit more creative in targeting people, in creating information that is relevant for that population that might be a little bit different than our historical applicant pools, and being prepared to address their needs and questions and priorities, particularly if they haven't worked in a public sector position before.
Colleen McManus, thank you. She's from the state of Arizona. You can find her on LinkedIn, as well as me, Todd Raffel. I'm from Eightfold. Really appreciate it. It's been interesting.
Thanks a lot, Todd.